This is Cameron Locke for Business Radio in the Morning. Here in the studio today, I've got psychologist Dr. Mike Crady, an expert in communication styles. Welcome, Mike.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I introduced you as an expert in communication styles, Mike, but to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what that involves.
In simple terms, what we call communication is basically the transfer of meaning from one person to another, okay? When two people are having a conversation, they communicate partly through gestures and other nonverbal cues, but the majority of their communication comes from the two people speaking and listening to one another. And, as I'm sure you've experienced, every person has a different speaking style and a different listening style. My work focuses on analyzing and recognizing these styles in order to help people communicate more effectively.
Well, you're certainly right that different people have different styles of speaking and listening. I know that's true because my wife tells me all the time that I'm not listening to her. But I swear I am, honey.
Your wife is right, in a sense. From her point of view, you're not listening to her. You see, her idea of what listening means and what is involved is very different from your idea of those things. But, of course, you're right too. You are listening to her, just in the way that matches your definition, not hers.
So you're saying the problem is not that I'm not listening. It is that she doesn't think I'm listening, even though I am?
Exactly. You're both listening to each other, but you're not necessarily doing it in the way that the other person expects. This is common in any kind of relationship. Look, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying men always listen in this way or women always do it that way, but there are certain communication styles that men are more likely to have, and other styles that are more common among women. Let me give some examples. In general, men feel that communication should have a purpose. They ask questions or talk about things in order to make a point, get an answer, solve a problem, reach an agreement, that kind of thing. For women, however, asking questions and talking to others is often viewed as an opportunity to discover information, share feelings, and develop closer relationships. In other words, for men, communication has a goal. For women, communication is the goal. Another common difference is that men often focus on being active, productive, and effective. So, a man listens to understand the situation so that he can take action or produce a solution. Women, in contrast, are more likely to focus on being understood. So, a woman listens mainly to understand and empathize. She may take action, but sometimes the act of listening is action enough. Let's think how this might work in practice. Say a woman begins a conversation with a man. The man listens to her in order to understand the purpose of the conversation. He wants to know why the woman is talking to him, and if she has a problem or difficult situation. Once he understands that, he might interrupt the woman and begin offering ideas, suggestions, solutions, advice. From the man's point of view, he did a good job. He listened. He understood the reason the woman talked to him, and he took action to address her concerns. He didn't waste time listening more than was necessary. From the woman's point of view, the man did a terrible job. He didn't listen to everything she wanted to say. He focused on reasons and actions instead of sharing and discovering. And he acted like he wanted to finish the conversation as soon as possible.
Hey, have you secretly been recording conversations between me and my wife? Because you just totally described us. Okay, you've clearly explained how different communication styles can lead to misunderstandings about whether somebody is listening or not. So now I have two questions for you. First, this is Business Radio in the Morning. So how does this all apply to business? And second, what can we do to correct communication misunderstandings?
I've already talked about some differences in the way men and women communicate. Those differences apply to any communication between men and women, including business communications. But it's not just men and women who communicate differently. Those who are introverts, say, will almost certainly have different communication styles from colleagues who are extroverts. The same may be true if a colleague is much older or younger than you, or if a customer comes from a different country than you, or even if a supplier is rushing to another meeting and you've got plenty of time on your hands. So, this definitely applies to business. Now, how do we deal with different communication styles? Well, I like to paraphrase the words of our 30th president, Calvin Coolidge, who once said, "Nobody ever lost their job by listening." What I take these words to mean is that 1, you can never listen too much. 2, your focus should be on listening, not the action you plan to take as a result of listening. And 3, when people feel that you have really heard them, good things happen.
That's very interesting. Thank you. We'll hear more insights into communication styles from psychologist Mike Crady after these messages.